Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Webinar Wednesdays, everyone. Welcome to CASE Academy. My name is Kevin Smith. I'm the Director of Programs and Events here with NACLE. I'm excited to have you this Wednesday evening or afternoon. So welcome to CASE Academy, everyone, the career accelerator in science and engineering. CASE Academy is a suite of physical and virtual programs offered to our NACME scholars and guests and other underrepresented minority students who are matriculating at several of our partner universities in engineering and computer science programs. The CASE Academy is meant to help enhance current campus offerings from other partner universities with content that is provided by our companies who make up the NACME Board of Directors. The combination of academic excellence, professional development like we're going to do today, and technical training helps to ensure that all of our NACME scholars and students are what we like to say are career ready for the competitive workforce, both of today and for tomorrow. And I'm excited that we have some of our fantastic board members and presenters here to talk about a very critical topic since we're knee deep into the talent acquisition season. So before we jump right into it, let me give a couple of quick housekeeping rules. You all know, as we love to make sure that we do, if you are available, turn your video camera on. We keep this webinar in meeting format so we can help simulate an audience for our guests, because like if you can see them, they like to see you as well. Also, with that said and done, we've now put the controls to put your mute microphones on mute temporarily. But at the point of the conversation, we will open it up closer towards the end where we can open up. We will allow you to mute and unmute yourselves, and you can ask your questions directly. We'll ask that you get on camera to do that. But in the interim, there'll be a lot of engagement during the presentation in the chat session. So make sure you stay ready in the chat and keep those buttons ready to go. One last thing, when you are asking a question, even if it's in the chat or if it's in person, hopefully during the Q&A session, be sure to introduce yourself properly. And as we do the NACLE Scholar way, introduce yourself by telling us your name, the university that you attend, your major, and then you can ask your questions and you can mute and unmute yourself accordingly. And without further ado, I'm excited to bring to you our wonderful partners from Autodesk. And I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie to allow her to introduce herself and her team. And I'll be back towards the end to make sure that we do some of the final housekeeping rules and to make sure we thank our guests. And with that said, Stephanie, I'm going to turn it over to you. And thank you again, Autodesk.
Thank you, Kevin. Hello, everyone. Really excited to be here. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about preparing for your next career opportunity. And I know there is a really important virtual career fair next week. So we hope that this will be really helpful for you. So as Kevin said, we're going to be trying to keep it as interactive as we can through Zoom. So show me that you know how to use chat by putting in your university. We love to see where everyone's dialing in from. And I work for Autodesk and I lead the early career programs, which includes the intern program. I've been at Autodesk for about 18 months and I'm joined here today with my colleague, Megan Gallagher. She is a program manager on the team and is running the slides and will be on the chat. So is Curita Yi, who goes by Q. She is, you'll see her name on the chat as well if you have questions throughout. And then I also have Nicole Rabata. Nicole was an ACME scholar a couple of years ago, interned for us last year, and now is working as a software engineer here. And I also have LeJean Butcher, who is a talent scout, and he's a talent scout on the technical side. So he's going to give us some perspective about what he does when he's searching for talent for any position here at Autodesk. So thank you for using the chat. I see LSU, New Jersey Institute of Technology, Northeastern, hello and welcome, good evening. University of Texas at San Antonio, Cornell, University of Arkansas, Purdue, Lehigh, Cornell, Purdue again. All right, LSU, excellent. Thank you for that. We will be using the chat today and also the reactions button, so get ready. All right, so our agenda today is really focused around preparing your resume, your online resume, and then we'll touch a little bit on prepping for interviews. Knowing that it is the first week of October, I can imagine there's a lot of this going on for you right now. So I hope that we can provide some perspectives today. We do have a check-in link so that we know that you're here. And so Megan's going to drop that in the chat. You can do that while I'm talking. I'm okay with you multitasking, but let's jump right in. Let's start with prepping your resume. So using the reaction buttons, the reactions on the lower bar, you click on that, on the little smiley face, there is a raise hand option. And this is a great way for me to very quickly see you raise your hand without having to come off mute. So raise your hand if you have a resume started. I'm curious to see in our audience if you've even started yet. This will be helpful as I'm talking to you about this. Okay, we have a few of you: Marie, Simone, Hallie, Kendrick, Isabella, Daryl. Okay, a lot of you have started it. Awesome. That's going to be really helpful today. So if you want, you can have your resume up as we're talking about it, because we're going to hit on a few different things on the resume. Great. Thank you, Anna, Ryan, Trinity. Awesome. I'm so glad to see that. And the resume, is one of those documents that you create and then you edit it and then you edit it again. And then you'll probably interview some and then you'll edit it again. And so it's a work in progress always, and that is totally okay. So let's talk about the different elements of the resume. So you have the basics, right? Across the top, you probably already have this, the name and contact info, but I will tell you the importance of the contact info. So you want to select an email that you're going to check regularly. So sometimes students will create a new email address when it comes to interviewing. And when you have multiple email addresses, as you know, it can get tricky on which ones you're using. So I would recommend sticking to one email that you're going to use for all of your recruiting. And then maybe even turn on some notifications for that email to make sure you don't miss any. It is common that when we as employers email candidates, we expect to hear back from them within a day, within 24 hours, because that's what most students do. So if you are only checking your email once a week because it's the email you don't use all the time, then that you might miss out. You might miss out on opportunities. So pick the email that you're going to use, set up notifications if you need to. It is really important, as basic as it seems. Phone number, your website, if it's your LinkedIn, your education. So this is often one of the first things recruiters look at is your education, specifically your grad date. So you want to have grad date on there. A lot of times this is what positions you for either an internship or a full-time position. And we can use that because, like at Autodesk, to be an intern, you do need to be enrolled in an academic program. And so like if you've already graduated, then we wouldn't consider you for an internship. We want to consider you for a full-time position. So that's super important. And then the bulkiest part of the resume, as you know, is your work experience or project experience. And so, if you want to put any of your skills or classes or tools and technology that you use, you can. And then in your work experience area, listing out where the job was, different projects you've done, the work you've done, metrics. So we're going to look at a couple of resumes here. So on the next slide, I have one resume up that has actually quite a bit of experience. So this is the first resume, just to show you what typical resume looks like. One page, just one page, but it's a very full page, as you can see, right? So you use up all that space that you can, and so you can represent yourself on the one page. Now, Lejean, I want to ask you, since as a talent scout, you look at, I don't know, so many resumes in a day. Maybe you know how many you look at in a day, but the volume that you look at, is there anything that drives you nuts, or that you see on resumes and you're just like, oh, why did they do that? Like, give us the juicy stuff, Lejean.
Absolutely. It's not just myself, but even some of the hiring managers that I work with as well. So I think, one of the biggest things would be like typos. Typos is a huge thing. It kind of, it really kind of shows a lack of attention to details. And a lot of people will just dismiss your whole resume entirely just because of a few typos. And also I have to say, incorrect contact info or not like updated info, so, as Stephanie kind of touched on earlier, phone number, no phone number, no updated email address. And I think, having those things updated is really crucial and important. So those are, my top two things that really kind of drives me crazy when looking at resumes.
Now that seems pretty obvious, to be honest. Typos and correct contact info, right? Like for the students listening, it's like, well, yeah, of course. But because you're saying this, that means that it happens probably more often than you want it to. So it is really important to have your resume reviewed by more people than yourself, right? Friends, colleagues, family, faculty, whoever can look at it. They don't necessarily need to be an expert in what you're trying to articulate, because sometimes that's better for the person doing the grammar and the typos, right? Because then they can have an eye out for that. Or maybe you ask somebody specifically, can you proofread this for typos? Like, that's all I want you to do. Where somebody else might be helping you with content or keywords or whatever, because it does happen. So definitely leverage your network there. All right, Nicole, let's look at your resume. So when we were preparing for this presentation, I was able to go back in time and pull up Nicole's resume from when she applied for an internship last year. Let's see, you interned in 2021. So it was in earlier in that year that you had applied. So this is your resume. So Nicole, walk us through your resume. Bring us back into time when you were at NYU and you were prepping your resume and applying for internships. What types of things were you thinking about when you were creating this resume?
Yeah, so I started my resume a freshman year of college, and it was more so just because a professor of mine required everybody as a homework assignment to just have a rough draft of a resume. And so it wasn't until like sophomore year where I really started paying attention to it. And so I had that initial draft that was a year old, and starting from sophomore year until now, I pretty much looked at my resume like once a week or like once every 2 weeks or so, on the off season when I wasn't like actively interviewing, and basically just edit it. And I would look at it like once a week, just because I felt like once a week was enough to give me to make my eyes, to look at the resume with a fresh pair of eyes, essentially, because, you don't want to constantly look at it, because then it gets to a point where you're kind of sick of looking at it, so you want to give yourself space, just enough space so that, you're always going back to it. But essentially, yeah, the first thing on the top of my resume is education. Because like you said earlier, Stephanie, how that's one of the first things that recruiters look at is your education, because they need to know how long ago school was for you if you're still in school, right? So that recruiters know what type of positions you're applicable for. And so in my case, when I was applying for internships, obviously I wanted them to know that I was still in school. And then the second thing, I put skills. And so because I was applying to computer science internships, the first thing in my skills I put are programming languages, right? Because that's essential. So I specifically put the languages that I knew, the operating systems. I also put coursework. So obviously that's not all of the courses that I've ever taken in college, but I just put the ones that I thought were the most important. And also, depending on what type of position I was applying towards, sometimes I would tweak that. So if I was applying for a position that was not going to use any Python at all, I would probably just remove Python or something like that, or I would add other classes that may be more relevant to that position or what have you. It really depends how much space I have in the resume and how I feel about it, how I feel that could add to my resume or not. And then other tools, so just like software specific things, specifically because sometimes in the little blurb that they give you for when you apply for the position, it says, okay, we're looking for people who have experience with this software. And it can be just as simple as I know how to use Google Drive. I know how to use Microsoft Excel, right? Because like, you know, a lot of people don't even have those basic skills, or those are just skills that you want to highlight that, okay, you don't need to waste time on me for like the first week or 2 weeks of my internship teaching me how to do the basic things, because I know how to do that. I can just jump right into learning new stuff, right? And so then after that, I did work experience, right? So I had a couple of internships during the summer of my sophomore and junior year at NYU. And then I was also a TA during the year. And then the next section after that is projects. So those are all projects that I either worked at during my internships or projects that I had in school. And so if you don't have work experience, like when I didn't have work experience freshman and sophomore year, basically all I had was that project section. And I actually had a lot more. I think I had like 3 other projects that I had to take out because I had to fit in my work experience after that. But, you know, like half of those projects are not even from internships. They're from projects that I had in school, right? So that's a good idea. Or like also specifically for computer science, if you have a GitHub, it would be great to link your GitHub on the top of your resume so that, you know, the recruiter, if they have time, they can literally look at what you've coded. And then after that, I just did leadership activities and interests and hobbies. So because I had extra space on my resume, I figured, why not? I feel like they show a little bit of my personality, right? Like I specifically joined an animal welfare type of club because I really care about animals and my interests and other stuff like that. They're just great conversation starters. And you would be surprised how many interviews I've been in where those things have actually come up. So yeah, that's
great. That's great. You hit on so many great things there. I'm going to double click on a couple of them because I thought they were so good. One of the things you said was look at the job description and then you would adjust your resume. So like everyone's going to have like their baseline resume. And then as you're applying to jobs, you may want to make some tweaks, which just means you make another version. So you can still go back to that one. So I love the example you gave because the job description. So if you're looking at this and going, wow, I mean, Nicole's resume looks really good, but she's got, you know, what programming languages should I have there? What operating systems? The job description will tell you. It'll usually tell you what they're looking for, whether it's required or preferred. And that's a really good indicator of how to prioritize what's going on your resume if you have those skills. Because you want, you know, there to be a matching up. Think about the recruiters. They've got the job description, they've got your resume, and they are looking for resumes that have most of what's in that job description. It doesn't have to have everything, but some of those key things. So of course, as your resume, you want to make that really easy for them to find. So I loved that example, and knowing that you had many versions based on the job and just the whole work in progress. The other thing you said that I loved was the interests and hobbies, because I always get questions from students about whether to put this or not. And it's very much a personal choice, right? This is your resume. Every single one of them is unique to you. And my advice is if you're comfortable talking about any of those things, I mean, Nicole said she couldn't believe how many times it came up. People said, oh, like, I mean, when I looked at it, I'm like, oh, I do yoga. I'm actually a certified yoga instructor. Like, I love that you know yoga. And it's like, it's just such an easy way to start a conversation, but only if you're comfortable about it. Because, you know, you want to put things in that you're comfortable and excited to talk about as a way to talk about who you are. So that's great. So then let's fast forward. So you had this resume, you got the internship. You came and did the internship, and then since then you've updated your resume. So on the left is what we've been looking at, on the right is your updated resume, which includes your Autodesk internship. So I noticed a couple of things that changed here, and I'll comment on them and then let me know if I'm missing anything else. I see that your education is still at the top, which I think makes sense for new grads for a while. And then at one point it moves down to the bottom as you gain more work experience. It's less relevant because you're already graduated. But you took off high school. So I get a lot of questions too about, do I leave my high school on or not? I will tell you my thoughts is if you're enrolled in a bachelor's degree, I assume you've graduated high school. So I don't need to see high school in there. So I see you made that choice. There is nothing wrong with high school being on there. Let me make that clear. But I see that you had made that choice because that was probably something you needed space for that could go. And it's hard to determine what types of things to pull off, but that could be one of them. What else? You added the Autodesk internship, which is great. So that adjusted things, shifted things down. And what was the other thing I was going to note? Oh, the awards and scholarships. You're NACME scholar. And so you probably could have had that on your original resume, right? And so I wanted to point that out to the students on the line because that's something you could put on there. Or if you've gotten, conference registrations, or any other leadership activities. I always like seeing those because it just shows your involvement. But Nicole, anything else to add in the transition of your resume from, pre-internship to post?
Yeah. So just referencing exactly what you said. Yeah. So I had to make space for entering the Autodesk internship. So I had to weigh what exactly I needed to take out. And obviously high school was one of the first things I thought of. If I had space, I would have kept it on there just because specifically the high school that I went to was a rather large high school. It had like 2,500 students, I believe. So I just figured, okay, like maybe the off chance a recruiter might recognize my high school, and then that could be another conversation starter. But besides that, yeah, I took it out. And yeah, I should have added the NACME scholar in my first resume. I have no idea why I didn't do that, but then like NACME reminded me at some point that I should have done that. And so like to this day, I still have it on there just because why not, right? And yeah, definitely my projects are still on there. And just again, I want to emphasize on the projects, like 2 of those projects, I believe I did freshman year of college, right? And so like, that's how relevant they still are. That's how proud I feel about those projects, even though they weren't internships, right? Like that's just stuff that I did at school, and I'm happy to talk about them like when I interview, right? So yeah, so some of the stuff that I took out in my resume are stuff that I don't have as much, like I haven't kept up on, like some of the other tools section in my skills section. I took out like Tableau on the end there. I took out a GameMaker Studio because I haven't worked on those softwares in a couple of years, right? And so I kind of don't want to accidentally screw myself if I'm interviewing and then the interviewer asks me about those softwares and I'm like, oh, right, I haven't actually worked on those in 3 years, right? And so, yeah, so that's why, if anything, my resume kind of looks a little more empty on the bottom there, but that's just because, it's better to be safe than sorry, right?
It is really awkward when you put something on your resume, because anything on your resume means you can be asked about it, right? Because they're looking at your resume and they're like, oh, tell me more about this. And then the candidate says, oh, that was 3 years ago. It's not really relevant anymore. I mean, I've had that happen, and I'm like, okay, so why is it on your resume? So I love that, how thoughtful you are about keeping things relevant and, so you feel confident speaking to whatever is on the resume. That's great. LaJean, you look at resumes all the time. So looking at Nicole's resume, what do you think? Would you call Nicole if you were sourcing for a position that had her skill sets?
Yeah, I think I would definitely give Nicole a call for an interview. Her formatting is great. It's easy on the eyes. I can find everything I need to find easily. She speaks to her accomplishments for sure. And also she used metrics to really help drive her story. So I got like an instant idea of like the impact and the type of work that she was responsible for, because she did an excellent job painting like a clear picture. And I think, lastly, what was mentioned as well is that it was actually tailored for the position that she was applying for. So I think kind of based on these couple of things, I would definitely pick up the phone and would want to give Nicole an interview.
Awesome. How about that, Nicole? Well, we
Thank
know
you.
the resume is a work in progress and we can't hit on everything today. So when we get to the end of this presentation, we are offering resume reviews for you. So it sounds like a lot of you have a draft started, which is great. And maybe you took down some ideas from our conversation here. So we would love to help you by being one of those reviewers for you before you're applying for jobs next week. So, so more to come on that. In the meantime, let's switch gears to your online resume. And if you know what I mean by online resume, it's your LinkedIn profile. So show me a sign of hands. Raise your hand if you have a LinkedIn profile. And PS, I expect everybody to raise their hands. All right, I see a lot of you with hands up. Great, good. I'm glad you have the profile. I'm going to walk through not how to build a profile because I assumed that you already knew that, but to show you how some of the things that in your profile can help you get picked up on searches and to help reflect your authentic self. So I'm actually going to share my screen. Actually, Megan, maybe if you advance the next slide, or no, that's fine. Okay. I'll share my screen. I'm going to actually go into a LinkedIn profile and talk about it. So Danielle Valdez kindly let me use her profile today as an example for you. She is an intern here at Autodesk right now and a student at UC Berkeley. And so we're going to use her as an example and talk through a few things. So first is imagery. So you have a chance to put a profile picture. Obviously, this background photo is a really great opportunity to show a little bit of who you are. So whether that is a skyline of the city you live in, or a picture that reflects something that you like, or your university, a picture of your campus, I see sometimes. It's just a good opportunity to show yourself. And so, you know, there's a stock image there if you haven't done anything, but it just seems like a missed opportunity if you don't show some personality there. And it could be anything, right? It's an image. And maybe if you have an internship, you put the brand of that of the company behind there if you wanted to. So lots of opportunities there. So I wanted to point that out. The next is the headline here. So I see some pretty creative stuff out there. I'm actually kind of interested in maybe in the chat, if you can drop in the chat any ones that you've seen. Most of the time I see intern or students that say like she has English at UC Berkeley. That's usually what I see at the beginning. And the most basic would be, you know, your title at your company or anything else. I'm going to flip over to my profile in a minute and show you some of mine, but I've seen some creative ones, especially in creative roles. And so, or like recruiters will say, I'm a professional matchmaker, or just get kind of fun play on words. You don't have to do any of that, but there's just another place that you can show who you are. And obviously keep it basic is fine too. But it's just, you know, I've just been seeing more and more in that than before. I'm going to talk about an about section in a second, but before that, because Danielle actually doesn't have an about section, so I'll explain what that means. She does have a featured section. So this is one of those where she actually has a resume posted. And when I looked at this, I said, oh, how interesting. I want to share this because I'm sharing this with a bunch of students, and maybe you would want to do that too, because you're looking for jobs. And so she featured her resume. She also has a publication here. Any kind of work that's, you know, public and linked that you can link to can go here. So I think this is a great opportunity to, if you have something like that. Obviously your experience is here, and this is pretty much matches your resume. It doesn't have to be nearly as bulleted out, but it, you know, it's basically your resume. And so you want that to match up. And so all the work that you put on your resume, here's phase 2, and then you put it onto LinkedIn. Clearly your education, and then you can highlight skills here too, again, straight from your resume. And the other part is interests. So you probably know this, but, you know, following companies like Autodesk or any companies you're interviewing for, then you're on their feed. So you get to know them even more. So it's just a really easy way to leverage the algorithms in LinkedIn. So let me show you a couple other things. I'm going to go to my profile. So I put on here, mom, yoga enthusiast, as you heard about. I chose this background photo. It's inside an Autodesk office. I've actually sat there and seen this wall, and it's in San Francisco, which is where I used to live. And so that was meaningful to me. So that's why I picked that picture. But what I wanted to show you is in your profile picture, you can click on this frames. And if I select this frame that says open to work, have you all seen this in other people's profiles? It's just a way to get noticed, right, on LinkedIn. So it's an option, not required. I'm not going to do it because I am not open for work. But I have done this when I'm hiring for my team. I do that. So that's something you can look for too. So when you hit apply, then it's just, a frame on your picture. So I wanted to show you that. Let's see, was there anything else? Oh, the about section. This is what I want to talk about. And I'm going to have LaJean touch on this too. So my about section is actually pretty long because I am also a hiring manager. So I spent a lot of time on my about section because I knew that students like you and also recruiters that I'm hiring to be on my team are going to look at my profile. And so I put in a little bit about Autodesk and about me and as a leader. You will probably put, I'm a, like I think Nicole yours says something like this, I'm a NYU grad. I'll go to yours in a second if that's okay with you, because it's just like 1 or 2 sentences, it'll be short. But something that I saw someone else do, I get all my ideas, by the way, of looking at other people's profiles. So I'm just sharing you the knowledge that I've collected. I put in some of these personality test kind of things. And for me as a leader, that's important because it shows other people what I'm like. But I'm pretty sure when you're in college, you get exposed to a lot of these kinds of things, whether it's Myers-Briggs, Strength Finders. Do any of these sound familiar to you? A lot of them are free online. But with the Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENFJ. And then I grabbed a quote that they say themselves are about ENFJs that, are outstanding leaders of groups. I grabbed a quote that I thought would be relevant to people I was recruiting. So anyways, just giving you some ideas of ways to fill out the about section. I'm telling you, the about section is the hardest part because you have to write about yourself. Nicole, are you okay if I go over to your profile?
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so let's peek at Nicole's real quick. So here's her about section. Recently graduated with a bachelor's in computer science in NYU, currently working at Autodesk. Simple as that. Now, LaJean, you do sourcing in LinkedIn all the time. So tell us about when people put things like Fusion 360 or data structures, game programming. Is that important?
Yeah, so that is important because I focus a lot on like keyword searches. So when I'm doing searches and I'm looking for someone who is familiar with Fusion 360, or I'm looking for someone who's more on the data side of things and so forth, or someone who's looking for like a gaming programmer, when I am looking for talent, these are the first things that are highlighted on the profile. So instantly I know that, oh, okay, well, I have a potential connection here based on what Nicole was able to put in her about section.
Mm-hmm. Great. So that'd be a really good reason to put some information here, even if it's really short like this. In fact, I expect it to be 2, maybe 3 sentences, because you don't have a ton of experience to reference, but you do have some great keywords just from your classes and your projects and the applications that you know how to use. All right, so let's summarize. We'll pull the slides back up because I know I just walked through a lot, but let's put it on to a slide so you can see what we talked about. I wanted you to have ideas to take away after everything that I showed you, because I know I just put a lot out at you. So we talked about the about section is what we just talked about, adding that, adding imagery or a background photo. Megan, if you don't mind going to the next slide here, because I'm going off memory right now. Following companies, orgs, or schools of interest. So then you're on their feeds. And oh yeah, and the simplest thing you can do is connect with some people today. Connect with me, LaJean. Megan, all of us, we're happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. My favorite part is when you do ask to connect, to say, hey, I saw you on the NACME webinar Wednesdays and would love to connect. Just to put the two together is really helpful for us. With any fellow names you see on here, building your network is always part of LinkedIn. And anything else to add? All right, Q dropped my LinkedIn in there. All right, I'm expecting some requests here. Nice, thank you, Q. All right, let's keep moving on because I am keeping an eye on the clock. So wrapping this up is really, I mean, today was really about your resume and your LinkedIn profile and getting you ready for the career fairs that are coming up. But I want to touch on a little bit on interviews. So now raise your hand if you feel ready to interview. And maybe some of you already have, because some companies are really early. Have anybody ready to interview? You're like, I don't even have my resume confirmed. I don't know. All right, a few of you. Very good. Okay, I don't expect you to all be ready. And I don't know if you ever feel ready because, you know, interviewing is one of those things that is an interesting time in life, and you will continue to interview a lot throughout your career. So it's another one of those things like your resume that you keep working at. Interviews are the same way. You still practice and prepare and everything. So let's talk about what you prepare. And I hope we'll have an entire session on preparing for interviews. I'm going to touch on a few things, and we've actually talked about a couple of these today. So reviewing the job description. And this is really can be in tandem with your resume, right? So like Nicole talked about, reviewing the job description, looking at the skills and the qualifications that are required or preferred. And if you have those skills, then you want to make sure they're highlighted and highlighted up high, and some of the first things that you're talking about in your bullets when it comes to your work experience in your projects. So job description can be a real good driver of how to add content, and also how to ask questions, right? If there's something you're not sure about, like I saw this in the job description, can you tell me more about that? Job description is like a cheat sheet to what the job is and to prepare for the interview. So definitely take advantage of that. You'll want to prep your project skills experiences in a way that you can speak to them. So when we talked about on the resume, having everything listed on the resume is fair game to be asked about. So you want to be prepared to ask or to answer those types of things and to talk about yourself and your work, which is not always easy to do. It's one of those things you do need to practice out loud with other people in the mirror. It's one of those things you've got to practice so you feel really comfortable and so you can make the interview more conversational. That's how I like to interview. LaShawn, I'd love to hear how your interviews go, but it is way more fun to interview people when it's much more conversational. And so don't feel like you have to be real structured to say it in the perfect way. Just say what you did, you know. Another way to prepare, you know, researching the company. I hope that's obvious. But looking at, you know, most companies post on their website their values, goals, and mission. And that's such a great way for you to look at that and formulate some questions about that, or to evaluate if those values and missions align with what yours are personally, because that could be a reason that you want to work there or not. What else are you interested in knowing about? Because that's going to help you articulate some questions, right? You always want to ask questions. You'll always have a chance to ask questions to some extent during the interviews. And so you want to have some of those prepared. And my hint here of all of the above is use all these different things that you have right in front of you, the job description, the information on the website, the different qualifications, to ask them more about what that might look like. So in preparing for your questions, you know, that can be about the work itself, about the hiring manager's leadership style. It could be about how they've managed interns in the past. Like a great question, like, you know, have you managed interns in the past? What's the best part of managing an intern, and what's the most challenging part of an intern? What a great way to get to know a hiring manager by asking that question. All right, and then after the interview, a couple of tips here. Again, just touching on this pretty high level, but you want to reflect on how the interview went. And this is just a really great way to continue to improve and go along this journey, right? Take notes. How did you feel after that interview? Did you feel like you answered that question well? What would you have done if you could answer it again? How would you have done it? Because guess what? That question or some version of that question will get asked again in another interview. And what a great opportunity to think through what you would have been done differently. Thank you emails. We like thank you emails. I expect thank you emails. I'm actually interested in Nicole and LaJean to comment on thank yous. And Nicole, if you sent them, if you have received them, I'm interested in your experience on the thank you email topic.
Yes, well, I try to always send thank you emails, and I've been in a couple of instances where I didn't have access to the emails of the specific people that interviewed me. And so in that case, I always send thank you emails. I always send like to my recruiter, because I have their email, obviously. I always tell them, can you forward a thank you to my interviewer? So there's really no reason to not send a thank you to your interviewers.
Yeah.
Yep. And oh, go ahead, LaJean.
Oh no, yeah, I was just saying, just to kind of add on, is like, just don't say thank you because it's what's expected of you. Just do it because you genuinely, want to give, someone thanks. A thank you goes a long way. And, when I receive those thank you messages, they make a big difference. They make a big difference.
That's great. I love that. And you're right, Nicole, sending it to the recruiter to pass on if you don't have their email address is totally okay. And we will do it. We are happy to do it. The recruiter is your partner throughout all of this to help you along the way. They provide you information, they help you prepare. They are your advocate. So that is certainly something we can do for candidates. And then, yeah, get ready for your next interview. So next we're going to move into a Q&A section, and we are willing to take questions through chat. We can take questions if you want to come off mute. And as you're formulating and thinking about your questions, LaJean, any other thoughts that as we've gone through the presentation today that you want to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to share a little insight on just like prepping for like a technical interview real fast. I know that Stephanie did mention that your recruiter is pretty much like your champion. They're going to be like your advocate throughout the process. And I just wanted to reiterate, as in, you should always be communicating with your recruiter, especially when you make it to that technical round as well. So figuring out what that looks like, how can you best show up for yourself? If there's going to be a coding exam, is it going to be live coding? Is it going to be a take-home exam? What topics or themes should you be prepared to discuss? So definitely having them kind of walk you through that process so you know how to best show up on that day. I just wanted to plug in that tip there.
Yeah, that absolutely. So the plan is some Q&A here for a couple of minutes, and then I've got to take the chance to tell you a little bit more about Autodesk while we have your attention. And at the end, I want to also show you how to submit your resume for a review by a recruiter, and also a info session we're having tomorrow if you want a little bit more prep for next week's NACME virtual career fair. All right, Daryl, thank you for being first to ask a question. Daryl is at Tuskegee University and is asking about whether we recommend a digital media portfolio link, even if it's not related to the job or your major. That's a great question. I will give you my opinion, and LaJean, Nicole, Megan, if you have anything to add, please jump in. So my thought is anything you put on your resume that you want to talk about, you should. And so if it's a link to anything like a portfolio, hiring managers might look at it, and it could be a great conversation starter because maybe it's a passion of yours and maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the job, but it's interesting to the person on the other side. So my thought is yes, include it, even if it's not relevant to the job. However, if you're running out of space, that might be something that could go. So you could go either way, but I think I'm going to stick with yes, I think you should. Anyone else from the team have anything? Any
Yeah.
other comments?
Yeah, I'm a +1. Your thoughts, definitely. I'm gonna say yes as well. If it add value, definitely add it for sure.
Okay, looks like Megan agrees too. All right, great question. Any other questions? All right, Kendrick, sophomore. Whoop, we're moving fast. Hold on, I gotta scroll down. The opinion. Okay, so we've got Kendrick, a sophomore at Mechanic Engineering at the New Jersey Institute of Technology. I want to know your opinion on the value of adding leadership positions and how you could integrate into a resume and an interview. Yes, absolutely. Leadership positions put on the resume. I've seen students put just a leadership section, almost like I got a header, just like work experience, and it can just be leadership. I was one of those people in college too that had a lot of leadership experience, and that was probably what I spoke to the most when I was interviewing, because leadership is tough and you learn so much about yourself and about others. And so yes, I very much encourage leadership, and if you have enough to create its own section, and it will come up in interviews if it's on your resume. And I can imagine you will be using that as an example for a lot of questions if they're not technical, right? There's you could use those answers. Yeah. LaJean, I saw you nodding. Q, I saw you nodding. Anything more to add?
And I'm only nodding because you spoke to it, it was, yeah, it was excellent, Stephanie. I think I agree, especially when you're coming from a very technical background to even have like that leadership, space within your resume to kind of speak to on the behavioral side of things. Yeah, it can only add value for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep, very good. All right. Well, we'll continue to answer questions in the chat. I'm going to keep moving on the slides to keep us on time, and tell you just a little bit about Autodesk before we go, because I don't know if you've heard of Autodesk before. So I'm going to tell you all about it. We are a global leader in 3D design, engineering, and entertainment software. So we have innovators all around the world using our technology to solve challenges big and small. So we want to help, our employees want to help customers create new paths for efficiency, sustainability, and growth. And we, the recruiting team, are hiring people to do that. So we're fortunate to have a unique opportunity to have far-reach positive impacts on how the world's designed and made. And not many companies do. So there's a real ripple effect. And this is one of the things I'm so proud of to work for Autodesk. So think greener buildings or smarter products or more mesmerizing movies that you go to, right? Our products are embedded into so many different things that are designed and made. And we're ultimately here to make it a better world for all, especially on the sustainability side and impact. And I don't know if you know, but we provide educators with technology platforms, learning content, certifications, and education events to engage students and students for the workforce and so that they're ready to go. So we have free Autodesk software for students if you're interested. Some of you are probably more interested in designing and engineering the back end of these products, but if you are ever at all curious, you could certainly get access to some of these products as a student. So Q dropped it in the chat there. So that's always fun and a great way to get to know Autodesk a little bit more. Here's just our basics. We're headquartered out of San Francisco, 12,000 employees worldwide, growing, taking on acquisitions, organic growth, all that exciting stuff is happening. We're one of the oldest technology companies around. We've been around for 40 years, which is unique, right? And certainly changed a lot over those years. Our culture is one of the things, I mean, when you're going through interviews and talking to companies, all of us are going to talk about it. It's why we work here. It's why we stay. So, when you're seeking out your companies, the culture and the people that you're meeting is really going to show you that. and will really, attract you to one company over another. Our culture is certainly a reason I chose Autodesk and continue to choose it each day. As far as internships go, our internships in the US, they're 12 weeks. We have 2 sessions to accommodate quarter system and semester system. The internships are hybrid first. So if you are near an office, you have the option to go in. If you are not, you still have the opportunity to intern with Autodesk. And so we have locations around the US, Boston, Atlanta, Denver, Novi, Michigan, San Francisco. But again, you can be in any of the states to intern with us. Part of the program is a virtual series of socials and speaker events to try to create a sense of community and belonging across the interns, even if you're in different cities. And we have technical roles, non-technical roles. All of our open recs right now are posted on our website. And so we will be at the career fair next week talking about them. And so we did want to get a plug in case anybody's interested. And then the last thing we have here, Megan, I'll let you speak to it. You are the resume expert, so I'll let you speak to this.
Sure. So this is just an opportunity to get yourself ticked and tied before the career fair that's happening next Friday. I spent the last 5 years as a career coach at a university, so this is my jam. Feel free to email your resume in whatever shape it is to collegerecruiting@autodesk.com. I will be reviewing it and getting it back to you before the event next Friday. Again, one thing I want to say about resumes is this is ultimately your document. I know Stephanie mentioned that before, but when you get feedback from so many different people, you could be like, well, mom said this and my professor said this. How do I rectify that? Do what feels good to you, right? Do what you feel best represents you. That's the important thing when it comes to a resume.
Mm-hmm. Very good. All right. You heard it there. Get your resume reviewed. So you just send it into the email. We're going to be looking at them on a rolling basis. So the sooner you get in there, the sooner you'll get it back. But we did want to commit to getting it back to you before the virtual career fair next week so you can use it, use the feedback. So, so that is everything that we had. Kevin, I know he has some final remarks before we let you all go.
I'm sorry for the delay. I think I was trying to find my resume to take advantage of that. That is such a cool opportunity.
Yes.
You don't have that opportunity so often. Okay, first of all, before we close it down, everyone, all of my NACME scholars, please join me in a round of applause for thanking all of our Autodesk panelists this evening for giving us this fantastic, phenomenal insight on exactly how the talent acquisition process works, and especially some insights on how we can make, they're making it better for us to have good opportunities. So please thank you, everyone. Round of applause. As a quick thank you, and a reminder to next week, as we've been alluding to, is the first annual conference for NACME. So we're actually going to not have a webinar Wednesday next week. So you got the week off, take the break, take advantage of this. But as you can recall, we're going to be actively engaging in our hackathon. And majority of the schools, we've got over 20 teams who are going to be participating next week. So we're going to make it live. And if you want to help root and cheer on your team, that means you need to make sure that you register for the virtual career fair that's going to take place next Friday. So if you register for the virtual career fair, then you'll have automatic instinct. You'll be able to see live updates and reports and postings for all of your teams that are competing all day next Thursday on the 13th. So make sure that you register for that. And then we'll have also some nice, cool incentive prizes and available for you to go and participate in the virtual career fair on Friday, which is next Friday, October the 14th, from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's a nice wide view that you can get a chance to log in. And we do have some power hours. So definitely from 10 to 12, 12:30 is the first power hour where we're going to make sure that we have a lot of our students participating. And then that last power hour from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. I think it's 3:34 until 5 p.m. We're going to get that last big rush and push. And you can come see companies that are featured, including Autodesk, who's been a fantastic partner with us since we've been doing our virtual career fair. So once again, thank you, Autodesk. On behalf of all of our NACME team members, I want to thank everyone. Be sure to look out and to complete the post-webinar survey. I put the link inside the chat, but you should also expect to see it later on in your email because we expect that feedback to help make us better. And on that note, thank you, everyone. Continued success with your midterms if it's about that time for you. I'm looking forward to seeing and meeting several of you all in Atlanta, Georgia next week to participate in the hackathon and some of the technical training sessions that we're going to have next Friday. And of course, online at the Technical Career Fair, Virtual Career Fair. With that said, thanks everyone. I will see you all later. Thank you again, Autodesk team members, and we will see you all in 2 weeks. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.